it's getting close. The perfect final, my dream final, Spain, England. I'm preparing little bits here and there for you. I'll tell you all about it in a minute. But first, it's that time of the morning. Just a coffee and a walk. Near the hotel where I'm staying, which is Munich. I'll explain to you why in a minute. It's this lovely walk, so I'm gonna take you with me. It's always good to start the day with a little walk. Anyway, did you see the post from Joe about the things that you're not supposed to do in the next few days, like drinking Madrid? Madrid, by the way, is the perfect marketing ploy because it's a beer that's brewed in Yorkshire, but it's got all the look of a Spanish beer, doesn't it? Even Spanish words in it. That's really, really clever. Anyway, one of the things that Joe is asking not to do to the English audience is to follow me. What have I done? When in fact, it's the perfect time to follow me and create banter. Just tell me how badly Spain is going to lose and I'll remind you that we won every single game, that we've been the best team in the tournament, best goal scorers, the best defense. But it's interesting how right now what I'm getting from my friends is the impression that England is definitely going to win. Like definitely for sure. Football is wonderful because not so long ago, people thought that Gareth Southgate wasn't great, to say the least, that Harry Kane had to be replaced, and stuff like that. Oh, I love football. On a more serious note, I wanted to talk to somebody who has been following England closely, but has got a little bit of a step ahead, and is not emotionally involved with it. And I thought, you know who? Miguel Delaney from The Independent, because he's half Irish, half Spanish, but very clever and a great writer. So this is my chat with Miguel, who was staying in the England camp as we were talking. Miguel, how are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Sitting actually in the England media camp here before all the day's activities start. It was the main day of activity before the actual final. I know people look to the press conference tomorrow, but there's so much going on today. And a lot of final statements before it actually happens.
What do you think is the main feeling around the camp?
I think it's one of kind of almost this emotional momentum has been generated. And actually, you can sense a completely different atmosphere now than, say, even 2 weeks ago. I remember speaking to various people at the time who were talking about the camp is, okay, it's not exactly at war or anything like that, but there was a sense of boredom. There was not quite a tension, but it wasn't exactly an overjoyed camp, I think is the way to put it. And obviously that was because of all the noise that people were talking about that was surrounding the team, that was similar to, I suppose, England squads of the past. It was really the first time it happened under Southgate's tenure, where, and given so many of these players are in their first tournament, it got to the stage where Southgate and his staff felt they actually had to have an intervention and a meeting with the players just to talk them through what this actually means. Now, personally, actually, at the time, I wondered as to the wisdom of that, because I think that sometimes means you can fixate on these issues more. Well, I suppose the results very literally speak for themselves, because I think you can have all sorts of questions about England's performance, tactical issues, how the team works, even Southgate's maybe appreciation for how the team works, but you can't really fault how they've come through games. And that does speak to a kind of a greater will or a resolve in the team that is important. And I think that's probably a product of something much longer term that Southgate has done, which is address the culture at the heart of the English team. Because, I mean, a last-minute equaliser against Slovakia, it did directly keep England in the tournament. Sorry, 95th minute, really. Then a penalty shootout that was one of the way they did. And finally, a classic last-minute winner in the semi-final. If you put them in the final. Those generally aren't accidents. They come from something deeper within the team. That's what's been developed. Now, the flip side of that, of course, is that, and this is always true of any late winners, I find, on one hand, they speak to kind of the resolve of the team and mental strength. On the other hand, they also speak to weaknesses within the team if you keep needing them. So it's a bit of a flip side. And I think that will feed into this final as well. Because on the one side, there is the danger for England that Spain just exhaust him with that classic Spanish style, especially with a midfielder like Rodri there. And Declan Rice, I thought, did look fatigued in the Dutch semi-final. But on the other side, England have so many options to bring on that have gone the distance in so many games.
Miguel, do you think there is the danger sometimes that we take what it is, a knockout competition, a cup competition, one in which you just described it, England could have been out 3 games ago?
2 games ago in the semi-finals, and yet we look for big conclusions that tells us about trends and mental state and tactics, the right and the wrong ones. Are we exaggerating the issue here a bit?
There is probably a bit of that. I mean, without trying to get too academic about it, it does almost come down to the maths, doesn't it? It's in the sense that I think all these bigger conclusions we have, or that we try to take, they're they're true over, say, a league season or a managerial era where there's enough games that in truth, essentially, kind of the reality of a team does bear out. So it's this classic thing that's said around tournaments. You know, you can get away with it for maybe 2 3 games, but over 10 games or over a longer campaign, performances will catch up with you. Issues will catch up with you. But in the short, intense space of an international summer, that temporary resolve, as well as the individual qualities, that can just be enough to take you through. And I suppose it's essentially why this difference in football, really, why the best team generally wins the league, but the best team doesn't always win a cup competition. And I think it's actually got a lot of parallels with Sunday's final. But you only have to look at the way the major English competitions finished this season. Manchester City, of course, won the league, but the cup final, Manchester United won it against all expectations. And there are some similarities in the individuality of the Manchester United team and the collective approach to City in Spain and England.
There are conclusions that we can take. For instance, that if England managed to allow themselves to be at the end of the game with options to win it, they seem to be closer to winning those games than losing them. So that is a team that it's got resilience, as you said. For instance, in the case of Spain, we have to say that we managed to get the perfect storm of players that are in the best form of the season almost, that understand each other, that there is a cohesion. There's a work behind, a lot of work behind that, of course. But again, we were expected goals inferior to France and inferior to Germany. Okay, we were ahead, so that kind of explains it. So it is, for a game that has got such a small differences at this level, it can win one way or the other. But can we guess how it's going to go in the final a little bit?
Well, I mean, there's almost an instruction on how so many of their recent games have ended 2-1. Spain have had two in a row, 2-1. England has been 2-1. Actually, England have had two games in knockout stages. Maybe that. I mean, obviously, in trying to kind of prepare for the final, writing previews, I've been to 3 Spanish games. I've been to all English games. And I think if you look at all, basically, football logic, tactical logic, technical logic, Spain should win, but it's not that simple. And especially not that simple because exactly what you've described about the resolve that comes to the latter stages. It's interesting, there was a phrase that someone put to me during the week, a famous phrase in South American literature, magical realism. And that's almost kind of what's happened to England's campaign. The reality of the performance has been poor, and yet they've kind of conjured, because of the individual quality within the team, they've managed to conjure these exceptional finishes that creates a momentum of its own. And again, I mean, it's another cliche, but I think it's relevant. I've heard the people around the camps, not necessarily among the players themselves, of a kind of a sense of name on the trophy, and both are entitled to think that. England, as we said, because of the way they've got to the final, last minute equalisers and winners. But Spain, I mean, look what they've done. I mean, they haven't just beaten big teams, and essentially the biggest in Europe, in Germany, Croatia, Italy, and France. We're talking about the defending champions, 2018 World Cup winners, the hosts, 2018 World Cup finalists, and in most cases, they've just beaten them. They've beaten them convincingly. So it's yeah, almost just kind of two competing motivational drives there. Both teams will feel they're fated to win it for different reasons.
A portion of you is Spanish, and see if you recognize my way of thinking that perhaps comes from 30 years of hurt before we actually started winning, and it hasn't abandoned me completely. So in the morning of after the Netherlands England, I messaged a member of the coaching staff of Spain. I said, England, it's England now. It should have been Netherlands. All scared. But what I got back was a message of calmness. It was like, don't worry, great final. We're looking forward to it. We're not inferior. In fact, we think that we've got enough to beat them. It's like, it still seems to me like this Rafa Nadal mentality. It doesn't belong to us, but certainly the team has it. They're very competitive.
Yeah, well, I mean, even you talk about the Rafa Nadal mentality there. I remember in the summer of 2008 when Spain finally won that first trophy, as you say, first in 34 years. One of the Spanish papers' front pages, well, it was in the middle of kind of successes in Formula One. Rafa was, "We're Spain. What do you want us to beat you at?" And of course, in football, this is very directly translated into what the stat coming into this game, where since 2001, there's been 21 finals involving a Spanish team against a non-Spanish team, and there hasn't been a single defeat. And that does speak to something deeper. Of course, again, it took a while for the international team to catch up. It was 2008 we finally saw a victory. And it's interesting, England are maybe at a similar stage there, where they've obviously had a lot of club success, but hasn't yet translated into victory in international finals. And so Southgate, to a degree, finds himself at the same stage as Spain in 2008. But obviously they have the experience of that Euro 2020 final. But it's exactly as you say there. I mean, England, there was a potential for kind of, I suppose, concern from Spain. And I think there probably is an acceptance that as it stands right now, this mightn't be the case in the future given the development of Spanish players. But right now, England are probably individually superior. And this speaks to something much bigger. I think Spain's core idea of football, which is something that England don't have, multiplies the abilities of their players and amplifies them so they can be better. And I think it's why they're in this final.
You make a very good point there. Spain have got a clear idea that goes throughout the lower ranks into the first team. So it makes sense to have somebody who's been the under-19s and the 21s manager into the first team and bring his own players. England are doing that. They've got a core of players that they trust. It doesn't matter how many people shout, take Harry Kane off the equation and put Ollie Watkins or whatever in. He's got certainly a core of players. I think he's learned that the experiment of trend is something not to try again during a tournament.
Yeah.
Trust your core of players, but they lack the style, something that comes with a team. They know how to win, but you think this could be with a win, and with Gareth Southgate staying, could be the beginning of something that includes also the style, or not?
It's hard to see. I mean, it's almost one of the lessons of England's tournament has actually been, and this goes against all kind of football intuition, that it doesn't actually matter what the starting lineup is, because with modern substitutions, they can change so much and they can fix it in a game. Now, the one problem with that is they haven't yet played a team of Spain's ability. So if they make a mistake at the start in this game, it could prove too costly. And that's I think another one of the kind of defining tensions in this match. Because as you say, even though there's a debate already building over whether he should drop Kane, Gareth Southgate is not going to drop Kane for this game. But that mightn't be as important because he will bring someone else on, as we've seen. But the question then is whether Spain will have had too much of an effect.
We'll leave it at that. I hope you enjoy Sunday. I'm sure I cross paths with you at some point.
Yeah.
And that bit of you that's Spanish, I hope you have a good Sunday too.
Exactly. I'd rather be writing about that.
I love talking to Miguel because he opens my eyes, makes me think differently, and challenges what I think as well. And the impression I got is that he is seeing an improvement. He is seeing Spain as superior. But like I do, there are so many uncertainties in a game in which one goal can take it one way or the other, that this is almost impossible to predict. One thing that the Spain players have done brilliantly is face the uncertainties of a game without fear. Something you could see in the way we approach the game, in the way we approach when we go behind, in the way we approach extra time, all those things. But there's one thing that I'm seeing here, a difference, massive difference between Spain and England. And that plays in people's minds, in players' minds, in coaches' minds perhaps. I feel England need to win. It's a golden opportunity, another one. They need to win, and losing will have consequences. Maybe Gareth Southgate will stay, but there will be a bit of a crisis, and there will be a debate about what has happened and who is to blame. There will be all that. In Spain, there's the wish to win. There is no necessity to win, but the wish to win. And at the end of it, I tell you what, on Tuesday, Mbappé gets introduced to the world with a Real Madrid shirt. We'll be talking about that and not so much about the national team. If Spain wins, of course, that will continue for a few more days. The chat about how Spain has done so well, how they've done it, and this is interesting. Luis de la Fuente has been promoting really positive values about togetherness, about solidarity, about working hard, otherwise you don't get anywhere. And he keeps saying that goes for life and for football. Plus having Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams as the faces of Spain has been a wonderful, wonderful, fascinating twist on how we sell ourselves to the world. So all that is really, really positive. I think if Spain lose, as I say, we'll start talking about clubs, football clubs, mostly Barcelona and Real Madrid in the Spanish media. So that is a big, big difference. I looked at Spain in detail with Carlos Corberán, the West Brom manager, and I learned a lot about how to build a team. We already used one part of that conversation. The second part will come out tomorrow, but just a reminder of it.
I think in Spain we have players with a high level and young players with a massive level. So I think that we all are excited about the national team of Spain, especially for the level of the play that we have. Level in terms of what they do in the football pitch, and level in terms of the human quality that they are showing to us. And I think that right now in Spain, you can be watching unbelievable players, that they play very well football. And you only can play very well football when you understand football as a team. Because this is football. Football is not just to play for myself with a advantage situation, without advantage situation. There are many things that you do individually that are going to have impact in my teammates, because football is a team.
I did tell you that I'm not in Berlin. I came to Munich because I was invited to a parallel festival that's taking place alongside the Euros, a literary festival. And it was an opportunity to do something I've never done before, and I really, really enjoyed it. Basically, they picked the foreword of my Messi book, got Veronica, very well-known German actress, to read it. And even though I don't speak German, it was so emotional to hear what happened to Leo in that crucial moment where Barcelona called him and he goes to Barcelona, which is the beginning of my biography. But read in almost like if it's a script from a play. It was absolutely fantastic, a great, great, enjoyable way of rediscovering the book, if you like.
Der Berater des Clubpräsidenten kam endlich an und traf sich sofort mit Riffé. Es gab vieles zu besprechen, unter anderem, was mit dem argentinischen Jungen werden sollte. Lasst ihn in einer höheren Gruppe spielen, mit 2 Jahre älteren. Ich will sehen, wie sich mit den großen Jungs macht, entschied Richard.
And then I spoke for half an hour about my books, about Cristiano, about Leo, in reference to the books I did with them. I'll share more on both teams tomorrow in tomorrow's episode, Coffee with Guillem, which of course will be filmed on the day of the match. I will be filming bits, which I'll put on Instagram and Twitter throughout the day, and that will be converted into a vlog with V, a Coffee with Guillem vlog for Monday. Do you know what? I haven't decided if I should go to the game as media, right? Or if I should go to the fan zone in Berlin and enjoy it as a fan. In the media seats, I'll be surrounded by my English colleagues and Spanish colleagues. And I've done that before, of course, in the European Championships in 2008 and 12, in the World Cup in 2010, I was working. I am working as well. But I just wonder if I should just push that aside and celebrate what it is, in my eyes, for me anyway, my dream final as a fan. I don't know, what do you think? I'll be reading you and eventually take a decision on that. Fan zone or media seats. We'll see. In any case, I cannot wait. Come on, England. Sorry. ¡Vamos, España!